Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire, I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
What is going on, everybody? We are here for week 13, the final week of your regular season, or at least for most regular season in fantasy football. Matt is with me here today. We are going to recap the Steelers-Ravens game that we saw 2 days ago that finished off week 12, and then we will preview the entire week 13 NFL slate. And then, of course, at the end of the show, since we did not have an episode yesterday, we will do a little bit of talk on the Mandalorian from last week's episode. We will not talk about today's episode because I have yet to watch it. So
you don't want me to give you a full recap?
Not yet. No. I'm getting ready. You got a couple more hours till the wife gets home, and then we'll be able to watch it. So I am excited for that. It's one of the few things I have to look forward to now, since most of my fantasy season shit the bed Wednesday night with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens game on national TV. So, it's always fun that my fantasy seasons were riding in the balance with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Ratbirds, two teams that I severely hate, and they cost me dearly. But
you know what? They hated you back this week, apparently.
They really did. I mean, it was literally within like 4 or 5 points. Like, as I made a joke before we started recording, it seems to be the running theme this year that I just seem to lose very important games by a whopping 4 to 6 points every single week. And it was very costly this week. But, I guess I look at the bright side, and as I tweeted out, as much as it sucks, I mean, this is the team that I traded away DeAndre Hopkins and got all those picks. So I'm sitting with like 2 firsts, 3 seconds, get Barkley coming back next year, Kittle, OBJ. So it's a good team. Sucks to not be in the running this year, but I guess, it's something I've learned for 20-ish years of being a Browns fan. There's always next year. And so, just
the bummer part though, is being close to the playoffs but not in, because then you're like middle of the pack with your draft pick. I feel like
well, actually, I'm not that far off, I guess. This team, I don't know, but I mean, we'll get to the preview stuff, guys, I promise. I don't know what, for most of my leagues, yes, like I'm in more playoffs than I realize. I don't have many teams that are loaded. I've got a couple that I think there's a couple that are sitting there 8-4 right now. I have one that is 9-2, 9-3, I think 9-3 right now. Yeah. So outside of that, most of mine are all in the middle of like 7-5, or the ones that are 6-7. There is a couple that technically, even though I'm 6-7, I have a chance to make the playoffs, but I don't think I'm going to like do anything even if I do make the playoffs. It's the one that I'm talking about right now. It's the biggest one because it's the Dynasty League that I created with a bunch of my hometown friends here. It's my most competitive one for me. It's the one I want to win every single year. So I'm actually sitting as the 5th pick right now because of the way the standings are, because the other teams who are not better than me, I think the most frustrating part about it is not even the draft pick thing. And I have another person's draft pick that's sitting as the 3rd pick right now. So that helps because I made a trade earlier in the year. It's the fact that I'm sitting at 3rd in scoring by a wide margin over everybody else below me. There's like 3 of us who all have 15,000 or 1,500 points right now in fantasy, and I'm the one who just broke it. I was in 2nd. But the guy who jumped me, who's over me by like 80 points now, had Tyreek Hill and Derrick Henry going last week. So that's really what helped him kind of jump up above me. But that's the part that's frustrating is I was sitting at, I think it's when I looked at it earlier, it's 1535, and the next closest person is 1450. And they're actually a team that's not even in the playoffs either. It's like, that's the part that's frustrating is seeing like even losing, I mean, I think it's fair to say Chubb for most of the season lost Barkley in week 2, Kittle, I think in week 3 or 4 that he went down. I can't remember exactly when, but he went down.
Got hurt early in the season, and then he came back for a couple of games, and then he got hurt in the middle of the season.
So like maybe 6, 7. I don't know. It wasn't. I haven't had Kittle much either this year. It's been the 2 games. Obviously lost Odell though. I wasn't counting on Odell much. He was a guy I was really just plugging in when Adams was out hurt, who I also have. And so to still end up being 3rd in scoring with all of that going on and then still missing the playoffs is very frustrating. That I think is the part that annoys me the most, because then I go and I know a couple of guys listen to this, so I'm sorry. I'm not going to mention their names, but I look at some of the teams that are in the playoffs, and I'm like, my team is so much better than theirs, and it's so frustrating to see that they're going to be in the playoffs. And I'm not.
So you need to get in a lot of my leagues. The last couple of years, we've had league votes to change it so that the final playoff spot is determined by most points for. So the top 5 are record, and then for the 6th. If the person that has the 6th best record has more points than any of the others, then they're fine. But last year, it makes a difference sometimes. Last year in a 16, I would have qualified personally as the 8th playoff team, and I'm also the league manager. I didn't have better points, so I knocked myself out and put the other guy in. He's like, I can't believe you did that. I'm like, we voted on it. That is actually kind of – when somebody suggested that a couple of years ago, I was like, I don't know. You play it out and the records and you get in when you get in. But it does seem more fair because of, if you get somebody's best game every week and have a situation like that where you're 3rd in points and 7th in record, something's off,
So I agree with you, and I guess this is the one that I complained about all the time about playing with a bunch of dinosaurs. Like it's playing with guys who have played fantasy football forever. I mean, we've all played together since like middle school, and this is the one where it took like literally like I feel like threatening to kill somebody just to get us to add an extra flex spot into this league to go to a couple IDP spots because I hate team defenses as well. I think it's extremely lucky sometimes with the way the scoring goes with those. I don't like team defenses. I prefer IDP just because even if it's only 1 or 2 spots, just because you still have to understand the defensive side of the ball. So you're not getting like the, I guess in a way you probably rostered the Steelers defense all year, but like that was one of the things that cost me is, okay, well, you just in a way lucked out because had you had Lamar Jackson and the full Ravens defense or full Ravens offense going Wednesday night, you probably don't get the points out of the Steelers defense you do, which is what in the end ended up costing me the win. Because you were playing RG3 and then Trace McSorley, which Trace McSorley actually didn't look that bad, but RG3 throws a pick 6. He's got a fumble, a bunch of sacks. Like you expect that when you're going up against a 3rd-string quarterback.
Pittsburgh's offense looked so mediocre too. I think we'll talk about it in a second, but first of all, props to Denmark. We saw that we're big in Denmark. We love you too.
Surprisingly, I'm was very confused.
I'm going to be planning my vacation sometime soon. I'll try to wear our shirt for our show, just so that we can be recognized. But, when you have Mike Tomlin coming out saying we look like a JV team. Yeah, and I was complaining about that too. My boss and I, we were talking. I had Wednesday afternoons, I have a ton of meetings. We have an all-staff meeting, and then we have an all-staff supervisor meeting, and they're all online now. And a lot of us are working from home several days because we're supposed to be at 10% capacity in offices. So I had it on in the background, sound off. It was the perfect game to be playing in the background with no sound while you were doing other things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was what more frustrating, and I know unfortunately Dennis couldn't be with us today. He's taking care of some stuff with him and his family. So, but he was talking about too, because he was relying on Deontay Johnson. And if you go back and look at the wide open pass that he dropped on what looked like not a wheel route, but it was kind of like a little hitch route out to the outside where he got past the defenders, like that probably goes for a touchdown, which gets you a ton of points. Like I think without the drops that he had, where he also had another drop, I think on like the 5-yard line on a slant that was probably going to go in for a touchdown. I win.
Well, Claypool
with those plays,
billion passes too.
Yeah,
like they
it's
had
just
Ebron dropped some weird ones.
No, I don't care about Ebron.
Ben with that complete trash interception in the end zone. I looked up from whatever I was doing. And I'm like, how did Ravens get the ball back? And then they show the highlight, and I'm like, good Lord. I think Juju was the only one. We talked about
because
him
of the
being
touchdown,
motivated to play and stuff. Well, I didn't see him dropping a bunch of stuff either. He seemed like he was motivated to try to go because he was one of the first people to be pissed off their game got pulled.
Yeah,
and he definitely played like it.
But yeah, so it's just one of those things. Well, to the playoff thing, because I agree with you. I think that should be in every league, and so I actually tried to get that in 3 years ago because the thing that happened to me, the one thing that changed is we used to pay top 4 places in this league. It's a $75 buy-in, so first place, second, third, and fourth all got paid. That year, we switched fourth place to the highest scoring team because I was the highest scoring team, and same thing, I missed the playoffs. Like every week I played the highest scoring team, and I ended up finishing with like only 4 wins that year, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I don't understand. And so I posted that because, like, look, like I get, I didn't make the playoffs, but my team was phenomenal this year. It's just this. I think we should pay the highest scoring team at least instead of fourth place because fourth place, I mean, come on. And then I also said the same thing. I was like, I think it should be highest scoring team as the last playoff spot. And they all it was a complete no. Me and my brother were the only ones who have voted to approve that. And so I think even if I were to bring that up again this offseason, it wouldn't happen because I think they're going to be like, oh, you're just saying that because of you. And it's only happened twice in our league. And unfortunately, both times it's been my team, which is the frustrating part about it. But it's one of those things where I'm going to be honest, in like a week, especially if this other big money league, my redraft one that I do for my work, if I'm making in the playoffs there, then I'm really not going to care anymore. I'll just like, whatever, time to move on to the off season. But it does suck a little bit because I was in the championship last year too and lost by like, again, it wasn't 6, it was like 8 points in that one. But it's just one of those things where I know I have a good team, but at the same time, you can't ever assume you're going to get back there. And then with some of my running backs like Zeke, who just looks like he's going to possibly retire at the end of this year, I don't know what to do. Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like, well, I had a good team this year, and I'm not so sure what it's going to look like in 2021. But
that's all right. To add some excitement to the Friday show, I gave my wife my phone because she needed to look at it for her project she's doing, so I don't have it. She asked how she would be able to get in touch with me while I'm on the show if I need it. I told her, well, you can always make a comment on Facebook. Yeah. And now that she knows that she can make comments, I don't know what kind of comments we're going to get. So brace yourselves.
Well, I was going to say, at least the good thing is it seems like our Facebook ones never show up on here. So I don't know if we're even going to get them. That's the one thing. Like I go in and I look and I'm like, oh man, people are commenting on Facebook and I don't ever see it for some reason. But we talked a bunch about the Steelers-Ravens game, so let's go in and actually finish talking about it. Steelers won 19-14 in this one. RG3, 4 points. Gus Edwards, 7. And, of course, it's RG3 and Trace McSorley that unlock Hollywood Brown, not Lamar Jackson. The Ravens' defense did look good. The offense struggled, which we kind of expected. What did you make of Hollywood Brown having one of his best days without Jackson? A coincidence, or is this just due to lack of options?
I mean, no Mark Andrews, no Dobbins, no Ingram, no Willie Snead. I think he was probably the best option they had left. And even still, I would say it was kind of a little bit of luck that he got a 77-yard touchdown pass. So you're talking about 13 out of 18 points kind of really coming there. Hopefully he's happy he got the ball some more. Nothing really panned out for the Ravens. Gus Edwards, 10 yards on 9 carries. He gets a touchdown, so you end up getting 7 points, but that was a pretty pitiful performance. Their offense in general didn't look good. Just when you thought RG3 was kind of running and starting to move, he pulled up with the injury, and obviously now on IR. So they got to hope they get some things back. We know they'll get Dobbins and Ingram back at least. It seems like they're tracking toward Jackson being back, although it would be interesting to see the Ravens in a must-win game against the Cowboys with Trace McSorley versus Andy Dalton.
I'd love it because I feel like the Cowboys could win, and that'll really, really put a lot of pressure on the Ravens, who then play the next Monday night against the Browns, which I think right now is trending toward being a possibly very big game, not just for both those teams, but for the AFC playoff race as well. So, yeah, I'm with you as well. Coincidence. I mean, he did have a nice little kind of juke on that play to get by the defender to end up scoring the touchdown. You know, some of it, I think, was it really seemed like they were forcing the ball to him. You know, Willie Snead, who's been their best receiver technically, at least stats-wise, the past couple of weeks, was out as well due to COVID. So I think it was just more of a lack of options. I mean, they did try to target Des Bryant a couple times. He just couldn't get the ball.
Devin Duvernay looked like he was the other guy that was actually catching some passes, which, you know, maybe a good sign. They drafted him. I think it might be time to give up on Miles Boykin.
Unfortunately, yeah. Well,
I mean, he just doesn't seem to be able to rise above. If you have Dez, basically, who hasn't played in 3 years, coming off the street and putting up better numbers.
The one thing I'll say on Miles Boykin is I'm not, depending on what kind of league you're in, I'm not necessarily giving up on him, because I think me and Dennis both said this when he came out, that we thought Baltimore was not a good landing spot for him, and that he's a big red zone threat, where I didn't think Lamar was going to use him that way. And it does seem like they're using Dez that way now. They targeted him a couple times. Again, maybe that was because Andrews is out. That was always kind of my biggest fear, is Andrews has always been their big red zone weapon outside of like him rushing or the running back. So maybe if Boykin ends up on another team, but he's not, I mean, I'm not really thinking about Boykin at all. So should I start J.K. Dobbins or Raheem Mostert? I would, I want to say Dobbins, but Ingram and Gus Edwards will probably both still be involved.
I'm starting Dobbins because Mostert and the 49ers are displaced in Arizona playing against the Bills. I don't think that's an incredible matchup.
Yeah, they're on Monday night too, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think the Cowboys defense is not all it's cracked up to be. Look at what the running game did.
Yeah, well, that's my fear with that is I don't know how they're going to use those three. And that's the, it's like my immediate thought was Dobbins, but then I'm like, well, we already know Mark Ingram's coming back. They're probably not going to decrease Gus Edwards' carries any either. So how much work does Dobbins get? Like, I think Dobbins is the better play, but those two worry me, where at least with the Bills, I think the 49ers still have a shot to make the playoffs. I think they're trying to keep it competitive. I mean, the Bills defense is very good, but I'm not going to lie. That's a very tough one. The 49ers, I was working on my ranks, so hang on.
Jeff Wilson back. Tevin Coleman's potentially coming back. Jerick McKinnon's there. I mean, they have 95 running backs.
That is true, too. There we go. I was starting to work on my running back ranks, so since we didn't have to have them in yet because of no Thursday night game, so I'm not going to lie to you, it's not promising. I have Dobbins higher right now. Let me see if I can even find Raheem Mostert. Jeez.
Did you forget the 49ers?
Never mind. I take that back. No. I have Mostert at 13 and Dobbins at 23 right now. So I'd go Mostert based on my rankings. I mean, let me see the point difference I put for him. So I think Dobbins, I had on here Dobbins with 12.1, so not a huge difference actually, because I think Mostert I had it 14.2, so only 3-point difference really. So it's not that big of a gap. But if you want to go based on my rankings, Hollywood, I went Mostert. I mean, I think even though Wilson and those guys are back, Bills defense is good. Again, I look at it more as they need to win, and as much as I love Dobbins, Baltimore just doesn't seem to want to just give him the ball, even though he's clearly looked like the best running back on that team. On Pittsburgh's side here, we were already talking about how it was just a bad game all around for most of these guys. Ben, 12 points. Benny Snell, 12 points. Juju, 17. Deontay Johnson, 12. Claypool, 11. And Eric Ebron, 12 points as well. Absolutely, Hollywood. Thank you for the question. Steelers looked flat, dropping passes, and I wonder how much of that. I know it's obviously they play in Pittsburgh and they play a lot of cold games, but I wonder if it was caused by the delays and just the bad weather as well. Like I think it's just one of those games where it's kind of hard to get up and be ready for something where
they looked out of sorts. I mean, it was Wednesday afternoon. Normally, if you're doing some kind of practice, I told my friend when we had it on, I was like, this feels like watching a college bowl game during bowl week, that you have a game coming on
and not a good
middle
one,
of
like,
a Wednesday.
The Belkin Tostitos Sun Belt
It was the Motor City
Rosita
Bowl, the
Yeah, it was
CarQuest
not
Motor
a good
City
one.
Bowl or something. Yeah. So, I think Tomlin called them out. Maybe a little bit of complacency too. When you're facing a team that's missing that many players, they probably thought, "Hey, we got this kind of in the bag." Because the Ravens missing a lot of pieces on defense too. Hopefully, they'll get it together a little bit. They have a Monday night game this week against Washington. They'll have to work a little harder.
Golly, I was just scrolling through these bowl game names just because they always have so many good. The Camellia Bowl, Union Home Mortgage, Gasparilla Bowl, Cure Bowl, Lending Tree Bowl. I love it. I love it. Bowl season's almost here too. Football games on every single day. I cannot wait. It's going to be so nice. And then everything just disappears forever. That's the worst part about it. Yeah, I mean, it was a bad game. I mean, I'm going to be honest. They came into this game we already knew it was going to be cold weather. Look at the Baltimore team, offense and defensively, that was beat up. I think, and no, honestly, we talked about it that I think Monday and Tuesday about our thoughts on the game. And we both thought that Pittsburgh would get up early and then they would run the ball. And I get that it was somewhat of a close game, but really it was made close at the end of the game when Hollywood Brown got that touchdown. It was 19-7 for a long time. Kind of looked like Pittsburgh was controlling it, and yet Big Ben still threw it, was it 50 times? Or 40 times?
And we talk about it being a bad game. All those guys were in double digits. So it's not like anyone went out there and just screwed you. I think it was more so many people thought with high-flying Pittsburgh that, you were going to get some Wednesday afternoon miracles.
Yeah.
And you just got to
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm not taking much away from this. I mean, in a game that they should have been running the ball a bunch, they still threw it 50 times. This is the offense for fantasy football. I don't know if you've
watched Benny Snell run, but I would also throw it a lot of times. He is not impressive.
Yes. Not a fan. Not a fan either.
Not a fan.
All right, so Friday previews. We're going to do this a little bit different this week, guys, because we don't have our consensus ranks done just due to not having a Thursday Night Football game. We're just going to kind of talk about the games. We'll still give our picks, talk about certain players, but we're not going to go through and give, all the rankings we have for each player. So first up on the docket, the 9-2 Saints at the 4-7 Falcons. What are you thinking of Kamara with Hill in this game? His production has slipped the last two games. And what about Thomas and Murray as well? So those are really the main guys we're playing for New Orleans.
Yeah, so the first week that Taysom Hill started was at home against the Falcons. And that was a pretty good 24-9 kind of game. He looked like a decent passer in that game. Only 5 incompletes, had 270 yards. Michael Thomas had his best game of the season. Last week in Denver, not a lot of throwing. Consistently, Latavius Murray has been a good play in both those games. I think if you have Latavius Murray and you need a running back play, he's a running back 2 or a flex I would stick in there. They seem to be enjoying the power running with Murray. I am a little worried about Kamara. We have not seen the kind of RB1 production. He has 1 reception for -2 yards in the last 2 games with Taysom Hill. We're not seeing it. Will they make an effort to get him involved in the passing game? There's been a lot of discussion about that. I also think there's a lot of pressure on Taysom Hill in this game. He's won 2 games. He's looked okay. He still has never thrown a passing touchdown in his career. He has 4 rushing touchdowns the last couple of weeks. I would like to see him throw a passing touchdown. This is really his kind of audition. This is going to be another road game. I would like to see him go back to a little bit more of what we saw in week 1, being able to put the ball vertically down the field. I know that pass to Emmanuel Sanders didn't look great, but at least they were trying to threaten down the field. They were throwing slants. They were throwing the balls. Last week, it was almost like watching a college wishbone offense.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, I don't think Kamara is going to be great, but you can't sit him. You just can't because you obviously there's the chance that something happens here, and he's still a top running back. You just, I mean, outside of you having Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry as well, then okay, yeah, great, sit Kamara, you'll be fine. But I just don't see how you could sit Kamara. Just you can't expect much out of him in the receiving game at this point. If you get it, that's great. That's obviously going to get you back to winning your week like he was helping you do earlier. Right now, you can only count on the rushing yards. I feel like one of these games, Murray is going to come up and bite us in the ass. I don't think it's going to be this one though, just due to how bad I think Atlanta's defense, how bad this game is going to be. If you want to be honest,
it depends on if you think you're going to get what you saw last week, like a 25-point performance. That will bite you in the ass. If you're open for,
I'm open for 12 from
7 to 12. I think that's a good range because he seems to be getting a lot of carries, and it could also be when they're winning these games against easier teams. If I had Alvin Kamara, I wouldn't be trying to destroy him against the Falcons in week 13. I'd be waiting to, I'm not going to have him just power running in there in a game like that. I'm going to wait until I need him.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what we talked about. Like outside of them obviously playing the Chiefs, which is a big game, we were like, there's no point in doing much with these. I guess in a way they still obviously want to win because the Packers are still only one game behind them, and that one seed getting the bye is still a big deal, but they're winning with them, and it's not like they've been close games really either. So I'm still playing Thomas, though, and Taysom Hill as well. I think they're going to continue to rely on him with his legs as well. Now that's a big, that's the Konami code breaker right there, as you could say, for running quarterbacks. We're not seeing Kyler Murray do it as much right now. Josh Allen. So getting a guy like Taysom Hill is getting you rushing touchdowns and those rushing yards is huge. So I'd continue to play him. And the one guy on this team, I'm sure people haven't really been playing him anyways lately, is Cook. I'm still leaving him off my bench, as much as that sucks with as bad as tight end is, but they just haven't gotten him involved at all with Taysom Hill being out there. I think he did have that one drop pass near the end zone, but outside of that, you can't play him. So Kamara, Thomas, and Murray Hill, I'm with you there. Atlanta, I'm going to be honest, I'm not playing anybody here. So you've got Gurley, who's got the knee. He's technically questionable, as is Julio Jones, but it sounds like neither one of them are likely going to play. The original Oz is now on IR. You've got
and Hurst was with an ankle injury, was a DNP in the middle of the week. He was a DNP on Thursday. He practiced today, and they don't really have him listed, but that would make me nervous. Ridley was limited, still not 100%. Last time they played the Saints defense destroyed them. I watched them play Denver last week. Part of Denver's problem was not having a quarterback. Part of Denver's problem was that they were playing a defense that was destroying people. I don't think Atlanta's gotten better at blocking. So for me, Ridley's probably the only one I feel like I'm sticking out there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I honestly don't think he's going to get you a big week either this week, because I think you've got my goodness, why can't I remember his name now? It's not Malcolm Jenkins. Who am I thinking? Marshawn Lattimore. There we go. I was trying to think of. You got Marshawn Lattimore, who we've seen can lock down some of the best wide receivers. He's been struggling this year, but as we've talked about earlier in the year, this New Orleans Saints offense was horrible. They've been getting better as the season's moved on. I wouldn't be surprised if they put him on Ridley and shadow him, and it lessens the day he has. I'm not saying they shut him out, but lessens the day he has. But they're going to be blitzing Matt Ryan. They literally have no one else outside of Hurst to rely on. And I will say Hurst. I watched I watched the video he did on obviously the suicide prevention stuff that he had on Twitter, and I watched some of the interviews he gave earlier this week. I was watching Good Morning Football yesterday. He seems, or the way he sounded yesterday, sounds like he's going to play, but I'm still not feeling great about firing him up either.
The injury report is good, but to me, Ridley loses some of his appeal, or has this season, when he hasn't had Julio Jones opposite him to threaten the defense to pull. Because otherwise, I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints play Lattimore and a safety over the top. And they've been crushing these teams' offensive lines, which is what they did against Atlanta in the first game. And if that's the case, Ryan doesn't even have time to wait for Ridley to try to work himself open. It's not like Russell Gage is going to be pulling a lot of coverage on the other side.
Yeah, so that's where I would say, and I hate to go all in on this guy, but that's why I would say I would almost think Hurst might have a good game because, my God, what Matt Ryan? Geez, I was like completely blanking on his name there for a minute. Matt Ryan will have to dump the ball off to him more than likely. I don't think it's going to be a competitive game. I think the Saints are going to kind of run away with this one with as beat up as this Atlanta offense is. And while their defense has improved, I don't think that they can do much to kind of keep the New Orleans offense in check. So I'm taking New Orleans here. I think I have Hurst as tight end 14. So if you don't have 14 other options that are better, then I'd play him. But really, it's Ridley for me is the only guy I feel safe firing up, and even then, I'm kind of worried about him. All right, 4-7 Lions at the 5-6 Bears. We got Swift is still questionable with concussion. Kenny Galladay is out, and Matt Stafford questionable. Does seem like Swift and Stafford are going to. Well, Stafford for sure. Swift, it looks like, is going to play. The last I saw, they are going to have him on a limited snap count, which is obviously not great because most of what I'm reading now is not necessarily the concussion, but I guess he's got some kind of sickness right now as well, which is not good. We saw the comments AP made that Swift has been sluggish and off since the concussion and has not looked like himself. Are you worried about any long-term effects right now with Swift and this concussion?
And that's why, honestly, I'm 4-7 as Detroit. I just fired my coach and my GM. I'm not playing for this year. DeAndre Swift is a guy I want to have for a while. I would not play him.
Yeah.
If you have teammates who are coming out and saying, and I don't think AP is saying it because he wants a bigger workload. He's at a different point in his career. I think he was genuinely saying, hey, he might have cleared the NFL's concussion protocol, but he doesn't look like he's back to himself. And when he had that concussion materialize, it was in the middle of a week, which we thought was like kind of a weird sign too. And now he's got this illness. Let the guy get right. Let him get strong. The biggest risk to me is putting somebody out there who's not right and gets blown up again or can't really protect themselves in that kind of a position. I would like to see Swift because the last time we saw him, he looked like he was getting into a real groove, looked like he was really coming on. But also, you're thinking about with him 2021, 2022, not 2020. I mean, if the guy doesn't look like he's right and you're going to have to throw him out there, the Bears may not have an incredible offense, but they still have a pretty ferocious defense. I would rather roll with AP and carry on and live to fight another day.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't even know what to think right now. I mean, it's one thing where if later in the weekend we find out that Swift is going to play, I'd be hesitant to fire him up because, again, they've already come out and said that they're going to limit some of his work anyway. Sounds like he's going to play, I guess. So, but they're going to limit some of his work. I mean, I would love, obviously, to have him play. I need a big win this week, as we were talking about earlier, and he's one of the guys I'd love to count on. I feel like, though, at this point, if there's someone you can possibly use that is more safe, I would use them because I'm just not sure. Of course, I say that, and then Swift's going to go out there and get you 20 points, but I wouldn't feel comfortable putting in my lineup right now with everything that's going on. I mean, this has been almost 2 weeks now that he's been dealing with this concussion as well, and they're saying still is not really recovered. Like, I don't know, I agree with you. I don't know why you would just put him out there then if he's not fully 100% when you're not going anywhere. Like, I get Darrell Bevell maybe, I guess, in a way, trying to coach to prove he still needs to be there, whatever, either offensive coordinator, whatever for the next regime, but I wouldn't do it. On Chicago's side, Foles questionable. A-Rob's the one that worries me. We'll save him for a minute. Mooney questionable. It seems like they're going to roll with Mitch. I mean, Matt Nagy did come out last week and said, why not keep rolling with him? So with Mitch Foles being out there, does that matter for you? And I guess we'll save the wide receivers for a minute and go Montgomery. Do you think Montgomery will come out strong again with obviously going up against a poor Lions defense?
First of all, I think calling him Mitch Foles and Nick Trubisky is actually the best possible.
Yes.
Is there an incredible difference between the two?
No. I mean, Mitch can actually extend plays with his legs. That's about the only difference.
And Mitch seems to have eyes for Allen Robinson, which makes us all happy. I hope it's a good matchup for Montgomery. He looked like he was running strong. They were actually dumping some passes off to him, which is an encouraging sign. But again, as we talked about before, only 11 carries to get to 103 yards.
Yeah.
That's not exactly, if he only gets 11 carries again, can he break a couple of long ones? He could. He's not getting the volume, but I was encouraged by the way he was running and the way effort he was showing. And, he had 5 for 40 and a touchdown through the air. If he can pick up 5 for 40 and he still only gets you 60 or 70 yards, it's still a good running back 2 performance. So hopefully they'll realize that they actually have to run the ball and that running the ball is successful against Detroit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I mean, again, Detroit's defense does not scare me at all, whether it's running the ball. I do think he'll get a little bit more work in the passing game just because they're not using Cordero Patterson for that, and they really don't have anybody else on the roster to help with that. And it does seem like Mitch has always been kind of more willing to dump the ball off. We saw Tariq Cohen have that really great season with Mitch Trubisky, so I think having David Montgomery out there is going to help him with that. So the A-Rob being questionable thing scares me. He popped up today on the injury report with the knee, which is not good at all. Now, haven't heard about how serious it is or anything like that. Obviously, same things I just mentioned with Swift. He's a guy I'm counting on big time in a couple of leagues, so I hope he's going to be okay. This is another guy you're going to have to watch closely. Like, I would almost put him in the same category as Swift right now, and I don't know how comfortable I'd feel playing him just because – this is so late in the week to get a knee injury and pop up. Now, maybe it's nothing major, but we don't know. They haven't said anything outside of he's on the injury report with a knee injury. So if, say, Saturday, Sunday it comes out and they say A-Rob's going to be fine, he's going to play, I'm probably putting him in my lineups because same thing. It's a great matchup against the secondary. But outside of that, and with Mitch targeting him as much as he does, but if you hear limited snap counts or anything like that, I hate to say it, I might pivot to somebody else.
Yeah, Mooney is questionable too, so it could be a sneaky game for Anthony Miller, who actually seems like he does better with Trubisky or for Jimmy Graham.
Yeah. All right, I am taking – who should I take? I think I'm going to take the Bears. Yeah, I'm going to take the Bears as well. All right.
Now that my coach of the year is no longer available, I don't have to pick.
You don't have to go to Detroit?
I don't have to hopefully pick the Lions with every game. I'm sorry, Dennis.
Man, when this game came out earlier in the year, I was extremely excited about it because it looked like this could be the possible first matchup of Burrow and Tua.
Now we're probably going to see neither of them.
Yeah, it's just it sucks.
So the first matchup of Brandon Allen and Ryan Fitzmagic.
Yeah. 2-8-1 Cincy versus 7-4 Dolphins. I mean, is there anybody on the Bengals you feel good starting? And again, especially if this is a must-win game with the defense that's been really good the second half of the season.
Well, and we talked about Bernard's getting a lion's share of the work, but he's fallen off. I mean, you may not have a ton of better options. I would say he's in flex range. Same thing with Boyd, unfortunately. You know, you don't know. Higgins actually ended up being the better play last week. Yeah. Boyd was better slightly the week before. They don't take the top off, and Miami actually has a good defense and a pretty decent secondary. So I'm probably not playing anyone. I have Boyd in a couple of places where I have other receiving options, and I put him to the bench unless, of course, Terry McLaurin, who also went on to the injury report this week, falls off. Then Boyd, back in the game. I always believed in you. I'm counting on you, buddy.
Yeah, like I still like Higgins, and I talked about it, just the way they use him in the red zone. I'm just not sure how often they're going to get to the red zone in this game. Miami's defense has been really good, so I'm with you. If I'm desperate, Gio, I'd be okay. I shouldn't say okay playing. I would fire him up in a flex just because he is. Yeah, he's getting so much rushing and passing work that I could see him possibly getting the only touchdown the Bengals score, and still with catches and yards might end up giving you a double-digit game, which is what you could probably need out of a flex to win your week.
The problem is they have a terrible offensive line, and Joe Burrow's ability was kind of masking that. Brandon Allen does not have a similar ability.
Oh, wait, he's not as good as Joe Burrow? Surprise.
I rode the Brandon Allen train for a couple of games last year. Yeah. I'm happy to step off. God bless you, Cincinnati.
Yeah. I mean, he beat the Browns last year, so, it made the Browns look like crap, to be honest with you. He went out there looking like the next coming of John Elway against that defense last year. Him and Noah Fant, I think, had 2 long touchdowns in that game, if I'm remembering correctly. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Miami here. This is loaded issues here with injuries. So Malcolm Perry, questionable. DeAndre Washington, doubtful. Salvon Ahmed is doubtful. Matt Breida is out. Tua, game time decision. They did say that they will take Gaskin, possibly coming off the IR, down to a game time decision as well. They have to, I think, release it 3 hours before game time.
If he doesn't, with what we're seeing, Patrick Laird is the dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that would literally probably be it. Because when they say doubtful, Ahmed and Washington, we should expect them not to play. Breida got transferred to the COVID list.
Yeah.
And Perry, he hasn't been able to practice all week with a chest injury. Probably wouldn't be a great choice for a full workload anyway. I know Miami's done it with no running backs before, but literally Ryan Fitzmagic might be their leading rusher again this week.
I wouldn't doubt it. I think obviously with as bad as this Bengals defense is, Fitzmagic's in for a big game because I think he is going to start. There's obviously a lot of talk about Tua and will he start? I think they're going to give him one more week. I mean, we've talked about how you always expect to have that down week out of Fitzpatrick, but we haven't seen it this year. Like his worst game against the Bills, and he actually didn't have a bad game. It was just the whole team in general had a bad game. So I think Fitzmagic starts. I think he's going to have a great game passing, and I agree he's probably going to do a lot of running the ball. Well, I don't know how much I trust Laird, and even if Gaskin comes back off the IR, I don't know how good he'll be. I mean, this was the same injury we saw with Nick Chubb. He's been on for 5-6 weeks now, so it's about as long as Chubb was on the IR. If Gaskin's out there, I'm not sure I'd fire him up. I'd still be.
I'm playing him.
Bengals defense, I'd probably play him as a flex.
I'm playing him, and if I know Fitzmagic is in, I'm playing Parker and Gesicki too. If it's Tua, I'm playing Parker and just hoping.
I really think it's going to be Fitzpatrick. Maybe that's just me throwing it out there in the ether and trying to make it possible because with Hurst probably not playing, I need Gesicki big time this week.
So the question is, which we talked about it before, what we don't know is Miami seriously trying to make the playoffs? If they are seriously trying to make the playoffs, which some of the talk has indicated they are, then it should be Fitzmagic, and you're not really even thinking about it because you have to win the games you're supposed to win, and you are supposed to win this home game. You're in a tight bunch, in the AFC. The AFC probably more competitive to the wild card than the NFC. You need to keep winning. You need to build yourself some stuff. They still have another game with the Bills. They have some other games coming up. They need to keep winning. So if that's the case, you're rolling Fitzmagic. You're not taking a chance with Tua has had ankle injuries, now a thumb injury. That's last I checked. You need your feet and you need your hands to be successful as a quarterback.
I mean, I'm with you. We talked about it when the decision happened. It made no sense to us. And I think they've got to be in it. I mean, you're 7-4 right now. Like, I get that you felt that you were a year away, but you're here now and you don't know what your team's going to be next year. Like, you could say, oh, we're building for the future, but what happens if you guys get killed with injuries next year and all of a sudden you're not in the playoff race again? Like, you've got to capitalize on the years you get there because once you get in the playoffs, you never know what's going to happen. Just talking about the Giants and how they still have a shot to make it. I mean, we've seen the Giants wildcard teams go in there and win and go all the way to Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl and knock off the undefeated Patriots, which no one thought was possible. Like, you don't know what could happen. I think you've got to keep riding with Fitzpatrick until he gives you that bad game. I'm not expecting it to be this week. I think Miami is going to win this game. Who are you picking?
I'm taking the Dolphins.
All right, next up, the 8-3 Browns at the 8-3 Titans.
Game of the morning.
I know, I'm excited about this, which I'm really confused why they moved it to the morning. It was an afternoon game like a week ago. It was a 4:15 time slot last week.
Maybe because they were looking at, if you looked at the breakdown, they have some marquee kind of playoff matchups that would be the national game of the week in the afternoon. I'm wondering if they move this one up to be one that could be kind of a focal going to most of the country in the morning. Because if you look at a lot of the morning slate, it's relatively unappealing or relatively lopsided. When you lost the Pittsburgh game, pulling out Pittsburgh-Washington, the record-wise may look like a disparity, but that would have been probably an appealing kind of matchup because of the stakes. So the Browns-Titans really in the first window is the most appealing, most relevant matchup now.
I mean, I think it's one of the most – I feel like I'm taking my Browns fandom out of this and saying this. I think it's one of the most appealing games of the weekend. It's going to be –
It's an important game for the AFC too.
So for Cleveland side, luckily here, fantasy-wise, I don't know if you're really playing in fantasy, but Kadero Hodge is the only one that's really out right now. Chubb has been obviously fantastic all year. We saw Landry and Baker got it going last week. What are your thoughts on this offense going up against a Tennessee defense that I looked at it because I was trying to figure out what I thought about this game. Right now, 18th against the run, 25th against the pass. So their defense has not been good at all, but they still seem to, in these big games, kind of play up for it and play fairly good. I mean, we saw last week, whatever you want to say about the Colts, they're still a fairly good team, and they kept them to 20 points.
Yeah, Tennessee's defense has gotten better. I think they were much worse at the beginning of the season. But I expect Chubb to have a decent game. I think Hunt, it was good to see him get into more practice. He was more limited in the middle of the week, was more of a concern. Seems like he's going to be on track. The Browns have been at their best when they've been using those two running backs to power it. It was nice last week to see that they can be successful throwing. And I think that given the Titan matchup and the fact that they have a secondary that you can go against, that I do think Landry and Austin Hooper will be a factor in this game.
Yeah, I think, in all honesty, it's going to come down to Baker in this game. I think, obviously, we'll get to Tennessee side here. I would imagine you're going to agree with me on this. As good as the Browns defense has been, where they're still, I think, now 12 against the run because of the way James Robinson gashed him last week, Derrick Henry is going to get his. I have no doubt Derrick Henry's probably going to get 100-plus yards on the ground. I think Chubb's probably going to do the same thing. What's going to be interesting to me is we've seen what kind of game are we going to get out of Cleveland this week. We've seen when they can keep it close or be ahead, they're almost like Baltimore, and that they seem to win those games because they take the air out of the ball, they continue to rush, they continue to pound the ball down the middle, they get Baker to make the plays that he needs to keep the chains moving, and they win those games. But when they get behind, a la that Baltimore and Pittsburgh game by a couple touchdowns, then they start throwing the ball a ton. Baker starts to get a little bit more frenetic, kind of panicky in the pocket, and it just causes all kinds of issues. I do think that they're going to have to rely on Baker in this game because I think the best part of Tennessee's defense is that front seven and stopping the run where you can beat them in the secondary. And I do think Tennessee is going to be able to put up points as well. Ward out, Harrison out on the defensive side. So you're going to have Tannehill, who thrives in those play action passing situations, is probably going to be able to burn them deep, especially with Brown and Davis with the way they've played this year. So I think it's going to come down to Baker to make a big play here. Will he be able to do it is going to be the question. I'll unfortunately let you know what I think about that here in a minute. On Tennessee's side here, really the big one, Irv Smith. Jonnu Smith is out with the knee injury. Brown's banged up, but it does sound like he is going to play. That being said, again, Denzel Ward, who has been phenomenal this year for the Browns defense and locking down a wide receiver, is out. So what are you expecting in this one for the three big names, really? Corey Davis, Derrick Henry, and A.J. Brown.
Yeah, and I think Tennessee's formula has been pounding the ball with Henry, who has some explosive potential. The Browns have actually been pretty good against the run. I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those games where Henry gets a lot of carries but not a ton of yardage. I don't think it's going to be like what we saw last week where he just obliterated the front. But A.J. Brown has developed into just another kind of level weapon. I think we've seen him go to the level where we thought the potential might be there. They will put their best coverage on him. I don't know that that's stopping him. He's looked pretty incredible. And then Corey Davis has developed into a great complementary weapon. He may never be what some people had hoped, taking him at the top of rookie drafts a few years ago. I don't know that he is a true number one, but he does seem like a nice number two in a decent offense. And Tannehill is pretty careful with the ball. I think both these teams have a lot to play for and are going to be pretty evenly matched. I think they have some similar strengths and some similar styles, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's the fun thing to say, because I do think Tennessee is a good team that they're actually very similarly matched. And this is, I think, going to be a good game. I do not, to use Dennis's saying here, it's in the range of outcomes for the Browns to get blown out. And I've seen a lot of people talking about that because of what happened with them against Baltimore and Pittsburgh. But I also think it's fair to say, regardless of how bad Dallas has looked so far this year in their defense, when they had Dak Prescott on that team, that offense was explosive, and the Browns matched them point for point. And I know they lost Odell, but outside of the one play at the end where he did win them the game, Odell wasn't doing much in that game. They came and they matched the Dallas Cowboys point for point in that game. They beat a good Indianapolis Colts team. I mean, say what you want. They're sitting at 7-4. They're a good team. They have a very good defense. That offense can get clicking. So the Browns have a good couple wins on their resume. I think it's going to be a tight game. It's going to come down to what you just said, Tannehill and Baker, in my opinion, who doesn't turn the ball over, and neither one of them have been. I mentioned, I think on Tuesday's show, the Debbie debate show, actually, so we were talking about Baker Mayfield, and I think is going to be a big buy low this offseason. Has not thrown an interception since week 5. We're in week 12, or we're going into week 13. He's been really good securing the ball. He's had one fumble, I think, but I think the Browns actually got it back. So he's had no turnovers since week 5. He's been phenomenal. I think the Browns are going to win this game, and I don't say that lightly. I'm not picking that as a Browns homer. I think that Stefanski is going to take the air out of the ball. I think that Baker is going to do just enough to win them this game. The other thing, and you can't really point this toward anything, and I hate when we say this fantasy-wise, it's the revenge game narrative, but Baker does kind of play up for some of these games sometimes, and I know he's talked about how personally he took the way that the Tennessee Titans came in there and beat their asses last year. In week 1, they talked a lot of crap, and I think Baker's kind of always talked about that game didn't sit well with him. I think he's going to play up in this one. I think the Browns come away with the W. Who are you taking?
I'm taking the Titans.
All right. Next up, the 7-4 Colts at the 4-7 Texans. Really, Colts-wise, I mean, Nyheim Hines has been phenomenal. I still think he's going to be involved. Could this be a great game for Jonathan Taylor? It's a great matchup, obviously, with going up against the Texans and their bad rush defense. We saw Taylor finally really got involved before the COVID issue. My biggest fear is Frank Reich being old school the way he is. Jonathan Taylor broke the rules by bringing not broke the rules, but he had his girlfriend with him who got COVID, which ended him on the list. Yeah. And maybe they are a little bitter that they ended up losing that game, not having him out there. Do they hold that against him? Like, I'm firing Taylor up, but I'm honestly a little worried that we might see more Nyheim Hines because yet again, in a big game, Nyheim Hines came through for them last week.
Yeah, but the Colts are in a position now where they really have to keep winning. Same things that we said about Miami. You're in a tight pack. They lost the advantage that they had over the Titans. I think they got to keep hard charging. And honestly, part of it for me could be, if not now, it's not happening this season for Jonathan Taylor. This is a prime matchup in a game that they need to win. They will love to grind out the clock. You know, Rivers was on the injury report most of the week, dealing with a little bit of a toe injury. I also hope it's a little bit of a bounce back for Michael Pittman. Bradley Roby also got suspended, which means the Texans have a pretty friendly secondary. And the only reason I'm saying that they're going to try to pound the ball on the ground is because their passing game is an atrocity. So, you know, hopefully we get a little better game from Pittman. Hopefully we get a better game from Taylor. I think they're going to need Taylor and Pittman if they make it into the playoffs to be explosive and to have a chance. This is the kind of game and this is the kind of spot in the season where you need to start to build them up and build their confidence and build their reps.
Yeah, I'm with you on Pittman, obviously. I mean, it's been great. They still targeted him a bunch last week. He just couldn't get any catches. So I do think Pittman could, especially with you mentioning Roby being out. Speaking of other players being out for the Texans, Fuller, Stills, Cobb, and is David Johnson been ruled out for sure?
He had to miss 3 games. This would be the third. He went on.
Oh, gotcha. I thought they were saying he could come back this week. So, and no David Johnson.
This would be the third game, right? Because
because they put him on right before that other game, so that should have counted. I think he can come back this week. I might be wrong, but I'm almost positive he can come back.
Just about the time I was about to say I'm almost back on the Duke Johnson train. You have to throw that
Well,
out.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. Outside of Deshaun Watson – oh, no, I take it back. Deshaun Watson and Jordan Akins. I think I'm playing Jordan Akins at tight end. I have him high in my ranks this week. Outside of those two, I am avoiding every single Texan possible because I do not think this is going to be a good game.
Well, it definitely could not be a good game. Let's see. It says they designated David Johnson to return. I thought that this was the third game. Speaking Thursday, it said he looked great. Resumed practicing on Wednesday. So it does sound like they're thinking about Johnson's status will be updated no later than Friday afternoon. It's Friday night, and they have not updated his status. So
yeah,
that's a good. That's a good sign. But it does say he was designated to return. Would be so if he came back, he's an RB2. I think for me, we saw Duke finally get involved in the passing game last week, and well, I think Kiki Kuti benefits, and I'm with Dennis. I would like to see what Isaiah Coulter can do, and we'll probably see him be out there. I am also with you in that I'm not really trusting any of those, and I'm not really high on Brandon Cooks, to be honest, because the Colts defense isn't too bad, and they've done work to improve the secondary. And literally, you went from the one thing you could say is they may not have had any superstars in Houston, but they had 3 or 4 guys that could threaten a defense, and now they have one guy that can threaten the defense. So Cooks is going to probably have 27 people on him at all times until you can get Kuti or a Coulter or the tight end to do something. So whether it's David Johnson or Duke Johnson, I think running back might be worth a decent play.
I am taking the Colts in this one. How about yourself?
Yes, definitely taking the Colts.
All right. The 6-5 Raiders at the 0-11 Jets. Josh Jacobs is out. Fire up Devontae Booker. I think he's going to be good. I mean, we've been talking about in the past couple of weeks that he and outside of last week, which I think the whole Raiders offense fell apart, he's kind of been giving you flex value even with Jacobs being out there. Now he's going to be the guy because I'm pretty sure, I know Richard practiced, but there's a chance he might miss the game as well. So it could be all Devontae Booker and
Waller for me.
The Jets are atrocious. I think if you're desperate, you have to wait because I think he's questionable as well. And Aguilar, if he can play, I'd fire him up.
He practiced again today. He was limited with an ankle, but it looks like he's doing okay.
So if you're desperate for a possible, I would say a little bit better than a dart throw because he's been good all year, kind of had a bad couple weeks. I think against this bad secondary, Aguilar could have a big game here, but it's definitely, if you want to start 2 guys that are going to be good, it's Waller and Booker, and that's it. Or will be good at least.
If you need a miracle, I could almost see this being one where they put one up to Ruggs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he looked good last week. He got involved last week.
The Jets don't have a lot going on the defensive side of the ball, and then Greg Williams does like to blitz, which often leaves you with some exposed coverages.
Yeah. I
know Derek Carr had a rough day last week, but I have to imagine he'll be better this week.
Yeah, so, man, never know. Maybe this is the one that the Jets win. You never know. Raiders fell apart last year.
Trevor Lawrence is praying for that right now, so...
I'd much rather go to Jacksonville as well. Jets. Any Jets. I mean, Frank Gore. I mean, the Raiders are horrible against the run, and we know Adam Gase was out there just talking about how great Frank Gore looks. He looks like he's 21 again, and he's going to get all the carries, and he's just looking amazing. So, no, still
honestly,
nothing.
If I don't have a better option than Frank Gore, I don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
You never know. You never know. You never know. If you really need a desperate flex situation, I'm firing up Frank Gore. He could get you 12 points, and that's, again, I'm talking bottom of the barrel, though. And you know what? Some of us are sitting at the bottom of the barrel with players.
I'd have to take a shower afterward after you put them in your lineup.
Hey, as long as I'm winning, I'll dance in the shower as Frank Gore is taking me to the playoffs, baby. That's all I care about at this point. I am taking the Raiders, though, to win this game. I don't think they continue their fall backwards.
Honestly, if the Raiders lose this game, they're out of the playoffs, so there's no way.
Next up, the 1-10 Jags at the 5-6 Vikings. Conley is questionable with a hip. Glennon is going again this week. Chark was removed from the injury report, so he is finally good to go. What are you expecting from him with this not matchup, but the pairing with Glennon? Against a bad secondary as well. Great game for him to come back.
Yeah, Glennon didn't look too bad passing last week. And again, they had very little receivers. So I think Mike Glennon, he may not know a ton, but he knows that he needs to throw the ball to DJ Chark, especially when playing the Vikings. So I think it's going to be a good week. I'm firing him up.
Yeah, so am I. I think, again, I still think some of Glennon's success was just how bad the Browns defense was. But guess what? They're playing against a worse defense in the Minnesota Vikings. So Glennon should have a good game.
If the pattern holds, though, Glennon played very well and looked good in his first game for Jaguars. And this week he'll remind us why no one should be playing.
No, don't say that. Let's save that for next week because I need Chark to be good this week. But I'm firing up Chark because
Chark and Robinson are about the only ones.
Yeah, that's all they have. I mean, I'm not trusting. I mean, Chenault looked actually pretty good last week against the Browns. He had a decent day. So
if you're playing Mike Glennon, even in Superflex, you should not be in the playoffs.
Again, I'll say debatable. On Minnesota side, we've got Irv Smith is out again with the back injury. Thielen is back, and the Vikings are technically still in the playoff race. Jacksonville, we saw.
Actually, not just technically still in. I have changed my mind. Vikings are in.
Wow. Okay. All right. They looked good last week against. I'm sorry. What am I thinking? Oh, sorry. They made the Browns look. No. I'm sorry. I was trying to remember why I was thinking in my head about the Browns. The Jags defense made the Browns offense look phenomenal last week. Now I do think Dalvin Cook is the big play here with what we saw out of Chubb and Hunt last week. But we've seen the way Kirk Cousins gets the ball down the field.
Lost my love in Thielen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I'm about to say. Thielen and Jefferson are in for sure for me as well. I think this is going to be a great game for them.
Get 147 yards and 12 catches and a touchdown after looking like he was clinically dead.
Yeah.
I feel like Adam Thielen, the NFL's leader in touchdown receptions prior to last week, he can get it done.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm firing him and Jefferson up as well. Might even throw Kyle Rudolph in there a little bit. Who knows? All he's got to do is Kirk Cousins always talks about how much he loves looking for him in the red zone. It hurts Adam Thielen a little bit, but he could get you that one touchdown. And I mean, at this point, that's all you need from your tight ends. It's just 6 points.
I think Cook will be fine, and I'm not playing him, but he has been limited all week with an ankle injury, which is the reason people were talking about going and scooping up Alexander Madison. So I wouldn't be surprised against a defense that you can throw against that maybe they throw a little bit, try to get up big, and then we see a little bit more Madison to save. Again, if you think that you can make the playoffs, and I, God help me, now think that the Vikings can make the playoffs, you will need Dalvin Cook later in the season.
Yeah, I am taking the Vikings in this one. What about you?
I'm taking Captain Clutch.
All right, I like it. Like you're coming around on Captain Clutch. The 7-4 Rams at the 6-5 Cardinals. Massive game for both of these teams here. So no real injuries here for the Rams outside of Whitworth, obviously. And Goff has struggled with Whitworth being out. I'm sorry, Whitworth, not Wentworth.
Yeah, Andrew Whitworth.
Whitworth.
Whitworth Miller.
Yeah. Can he get right here? And your thoughts on Akers moving forward?
Although it is fitting to think about Goff having to make a prison break because that's a little bit right? That offensive line has been like. Arizona's defense isn't terrible. They have at times looked okay, but I think he'll be okay here. I still like Woods and Kupp. And I think Goff, he got called out a little bit by his coach last week. I would think that's going to motivate him a little bit. Running backs, it's really tough to feel good about playing any of them. They do seem committed to playing all three every week in some fashion, which is just a nightmare. I know what you were saying about Akers having not a huge snap share last week, but he looked so much more productive there at the end of the game. I don't think Darrell Henderson goes away or Malcolm Brown goes away, but I liked what I saw from Akers, and if I'm putting one of them in a flex, I'm leaning that way.
Yeah, I mean, again, he only had 17 carries compared to the other two, but he did the most with those, with by far the less amount of carries. So I'm with you. I think Akers is a guy that I wouldn't feel bad throwing in the flex, and we'll see with Goff. I mean, I mentioned it earlier. It's going to be, in my opinion, something fun to look at in the offseason. I think Goff is kind of on a ticking clock now at this point. With the quarterback classes you have coming out the next couple of years, I think he might.
I think his contract precludes that. I'll look it up while you start talking about Arizona.
Okay, as was, I thought that his was a little bit different than Wentz's and that they could get out of it earlier, but I could be wrong. The Cardinals have obviously lost 2 straight here. Is this a make or break game for them? Do they get it right? No real injuries here. I do. I'll just say it right now, I'm picking Arizona to win this game. Kyler Murray, it seems like is finally healthy. They pulled him off the injury report earlier this week, so maybe the shoulder's finally feeling better. Might be why he hasn't been running as much lately. I am a little bit worried. I don't think DeAndre Hopkins has a huge game here. Now, we talked about this a week ago, that he's got a bunch of tough matchups the next couple of weeks, and I went back and looked at it, and I think as I was talking about the matchups he had, it was Ryan McDowell, I think, tweeted it out, and I wish I would have looked it up before I got to this point because I probably won't be able to find it very quickly. Here we go. So right after the bye week, here is DeAndre Hopkins' wide receiver finishes every single week. Did you see this tweet?
No, I just saw Jared Goff's dead cap.
How much is it?
Jared Goff's dead cap in 2021 would be $65.5 million, and in 2022 would be $30.9 million. In 2023 would be $8.6 million, and then 2024 $1.8 million. This year, his dead cap would have been $94 million.
So it's just like the Wentz one. Then 2023 is the earliest you can get out. Well, no, cap wise, but I'm talking about like the earliest you can get out is 23.
Yeah. I don't think any team can afford a $65.5 million cap hit. It's just my personal feeling.
All right. So the one thing I will say on that though, before I get to I'll save it. Actually, I'll do the Arizona thing so we can wrap that up, and then I'll talk about the contract. Wide receiver 73, wide receiver 2, but he was actually wide receiver 23 until the Hail Murray. Then wide receiver 42, and then wide receiver 39 last week. Like, Hopkins has not been great. Now, again, I'm not trying to say Hopkins is still a top receiver, but he's had tough matchups.
He's had tough matchups, and that's not going to be any better this week where he gets Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's also, I think, somewhat the inconsistency of Kyler Murray, who's still growing and still learning, but the inconsistency of Christian Kirk, who some weeks we've been like, oh, maybe he could be a wide receiver too. Yeah. And some weeks it's been like, oh, maybe Andy Isabella should get more snaps.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I could see that maybe the shoulder injury is part of the reason as well. Like I said, I do think that's part of the reason why Murray hasn't been running as much because he doesn't want to get any more banged up. So we'll see. But Ramsey's tough matchup. You still got to play Hopkins. All it takes, just like with that Hail Murray, is a nice long touchdown, and he can get you a good week. But I'm a little bit worried about him.
With the exception of that Hail Murray, they haven't been able to win any games. They're 6-5. They could actually be 5-6 right now if they hadn't. And to me, this is a must win. If Arizona loses this game, I think they're going to struggle to be over 500.
Yeah. So what I was going to say on the contract thing, or I'm picking Arizona. What about you?
I'm picking Arizona too.
So the one thing I was going to say about the contract thing, I was thinking more about this the other day because I still don't think that either one of these. I take that back. I don't think the Eagles will move on from Wentz. I could see the Rams moving on from Goff, but not as in cutting him. I get that the contract's a lot, but say not this year, obviously, because they're not going to be high enough in the draft. But next year, there's a lot of talk again. Same thing. There's going to be 5 or 6 quarterbacks coming out that could be very good. If the Rams draft one, as crazy as I think it would be, if one of them ends up being good, say in preseason, offseason stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if they just move Goff to the bench. Like, I understand you're having some dude sit on your bench and you're paying him whatever, 80, 90 million, but you're also not paying that quarterback you just drafted any money because he's on a rookie contract. So in the end, it doesn't hurt you. Then you can ride out to the 2023 season, then cut him for the $8 million cap hit if you just want to get out that quickly. So I still think Goff is kind of on a short timetable. I would be, if I have him in a dynasty, I would be hoping that he kind of does good the next couple of weeks and rebuild some of his stock, and then I would try and move him because we've seen the way this offense works when he's playing good, and we just haven't seen him really play good outside that first year. And I wonder if they're finally just going to try and get a quarterback that McVay thinks fits his system better because he had to come in and take over with Goff. He did not get to pick his quarterback.
Well, the Rams are just in such cap hell in general.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a lot of issues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they do. All right, so the 4-7 Giants at the 8-3 Seahawks. Daniel Jones is doubtful in this one with the hamstring, though I will say there's been a lot of talk that he could possibly be back by next week. So that is big if you've been riding him in your dynasty leagues because he's been really good. Possibly getting him back next week is good, but it looks like he's not going to play this week, which means you got Colt McCoy out there, the old gunslinger from UT going up against a bad Seattle defense. Are you expecting him to be able to do anything?
I'm playing Wayne Gallman and hoping I get some of that touchdown magic. I'm probably still playing Evan Ingram because of the tight end position and because he's looked pretty good. But, Seattle has been developing a pass rush. The Giants have been developing no offensive line for years now, and they're very good at it.
Yeah.
And also, if you've been riding Daniel Jones in your dynasty league, you can easily ride Colt McCoy to that number 1 pick. You don't have to just ride Daniel Jones to the number 1 pick.
Yeah, Colt, it's been good the past couple weeks.
Colt can get you there. I do not think this will be a very fun game for Giants.
No, yeah, I don't either, which sucks because they look like they had a chance to win this division, and I think a loss here is going to kind of set them. Although I think it's going to come down to them and Washington.
Like anyone in it.
Yeah, that's what
going to win this week.
Washington is probably going to lose this week too.
Looks like the best team, but they're playing Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So.
On Seattle's side, Homer is doubtful. Hyde is now questionable, and I believe Chris Carson is banged up as well. So what's new with all the running backs being injured?
Came actually off the he got off practice. Optimism there.
Obviously, you're playing Lockett, Metcalf, Wilson. What are you doing, though, with the running back positions? Carson obviously is there, but you expect anything? So one thing that worries me about Carson maybe was because he just came off the injury list. Hyde out-snapped him last week.
Yeah, I think they were still – well, Carson got nicked up early in that game. That was the reason that they ended up having to ride Hyde. I like Carson when he's on the field. Let's hope he can stay on the field. I don't think any of us in a crucial week 13 are nutting up to play DJ Dallas on the off chance that he gets a bunch of run. I like him as a prospect, but to me, it's Carson.
Yeah, you're just playing your guys here. Giants, though, again, I keep saying it, and I'll continue to say it, have a better defense than people give them credit for. I think those guys are going to be just fine. They're going to win this game. I'm taking Seattle.
Taking Seattle also.
3-7-1 Eagles at the 8-3 Packers. Ertz is questionable. I believe they designated him to return. I don't know if
I think he's off the IR now.
Okay.
Because they've been including him on regular practice reports, which you only usually see. Like, I'm not seeing Gaskin on the regular injury practice report because he's technically still on IR.
Gotcha. Okay. So with Ertz then probably coming back this week, does that make a difference for you at all? Like, I'm avoiding everything.
Philly's just too enigmatic,
Yeah.
Can they figure Carson Wentz out? You actually technically seem to do better against Green Bay's defense when you're running.
Yeah,
will Doug Peterson actually give Miles Sanders enough carries to make a difference? Yeah. That I don't know. Philly, their problem is the offensive line. That hasn't gone away. So I don't know how good I feel about any. Some of them are plays. Ertz and Goddard are in consideration as plays. Sanders consideration as a play. None of them are like top of the heap for me.
Yeah, I think you have to play Goddard. He's still been good. Even if Ertz comes back, I still think he might be a little banged up. So I'm riding Goddard at least one more week is probably the tight end one for Philly. You have to play Sanders, and I think he's got a smash matchup. He could easily be a top 3 running back as if they just gave him the ball, like you just mentioned, and that's the worst part of it. We've seen that's the way you beat Green Bay, but they refused to give him the ball last week against a Seattle team that, while they're better against the run, they still are not one of the better teams. Like, you can beat them on the ground, and they still refuse to give him the ball then. So I don't know if they'll give him the ball, but you've got to fire. Sorry, I had to sneeze.
No.
Green Bay's side here, I mean, they've been cooking. Been one of the best teams all season long.
I think Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams watched that footage of Darius Slay last week, and they thought, we can do that.
Oh, yeah. I think Adams, book it. 12 catches, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, this is that when they played each other, I think it was last year, he had, it was like over 100-something yards in the first half before he got the toe injury. He got that turf toe.
I'm just waiting for Jim Schwartz to come out pregame, find Devontae, and be like, hey, I watched Jerry Rice on film.
Yeah.
You're not quite Jerry Rice.
Yeah,
And then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be smash game for him. Outside of Adams and Aaron Jones, Rodgers, who you're all playing, Tunyon, tight end, you throwing him in there?
He definitely could. I mean, he seems to be kind of the most consistent second receiver play. Lazard's been a little bit banged up. Equinemius St. Brown a little bit banged up. Marquez Valdes-Scantling a little bit banged up. One of them could have a good game. It's tough to bet on. The other one that I kind of like is Williams because they've been mixing Jamal Williams in as a runner and a receiver. I honestly would feel a little bit better if we saw a bigger workload for Aaron Jones, which we have not seen in feels like half a season now. I'm starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I hope it's just something where they're just trying to save him for the playoffs some because I don't know what else could be the issue. I would say I'd feel kind of comfortable firing up Lazard in this one. I know a lot of people like MVS, but again, Lazard was targeted more last week in his first game back. We saw him get the touchdown. I do think that obviously they're going to shift their attention to Adams, so Lazard might be the guy who gets open more often against the other side of that Eagles defense, which I don't even know who it is because they've been so bad. So Lazard, I'd feel comfortable firing up as well in this one, and I am taking the Packers. What about yourself?
Taking the Packers.
All right, the 5 and 6 Patriots at the 3 and 8 Chargers. Cam Newton's questionable, but it obviously looks like he is going to play. Can the Patriots do enough to get back in the playoff race? They're technically still in the hunt right there, just outside. I believe one game back or two games back of that last spot.
I think they're going to hang around. I think they'd probably be a 9-7 team and be kind of in it till the end. They have some winnable games. And they seem to be doing just enough. At the same time, I'm not really excited about playing anyone on the Patriots.
Yeah.
But they seem to find a way.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to fire up Damian Harris because the Chargers can get beat on the ground, but if he doesn't get you a touchdown, he's going to get you like 8 points. So I don't feel great about it. I'm with you. I don't Jacoby Myers has kind of fallen off a little bit the past couple weeks, and the Chargers have a decent secondary, so I'm with you. I don't even know if I feel comfortable playing Cam, to be honest with you. He has not been great. I mean, even though they won last week, I think he got 3 points. So
I know I feel like they're going to find a way to win. I'm picking the Patriots, but I don't feel good about playing any of their options.
Yeah. On the Chargers side here, Balaj is questionable with the ankle injury. With Herbert and Allen going strong, look like in all honesty, one of the best duos in the league, quarterback wide receiver wise. Austin Eckler back had the huge game last week. Are you expecting them to possibly surge and maybe even win some games here toward the end of the season?
They could. They're a tough team because offensively, you'd think that they would have a better record than this. I don't know if it's coaching. I like Anthony Lynn, but he doesn't seem to be able to win these close games. They lose almost all their games last year and this year have been super close losses, and you've had different people rotating in there. I like them. They're a fun team to watch. They could be a team that could be sneaky down the stretch and end up getting into that 6 to 7 win range, or it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up going 4-12.
Yeah, it sucks. I honestly think as much as I hate to say this because I like Anthony Lynn, I kind of feel like he's not going to be back next year with the way that the way they lost like those 4 straight games being up double-digit points. They could be completely different right now. I mean, they could easily be a 7-4 team right now had they just held on to those leads. So as much as I hate to say this because I do like Lynn, I don't think he's going to be back. I think I'm going to pick the Chargers to win this game, actually. Who are you taking?
I'm taking the Patriots.
All right. Next up, the 4-7 Broncos at the 10-1 Chiefs. Lindsey is questionable with the knee injury. Judy questionable with the ankle injury. Drew Lock is back. Can the Broncos keep up with the Chiefs or keep within like 12, 14 points of the Chiefs?
No. Yeah. There's nothing that I've seen that indicates that they start playing football before the fourth quarter on offense. And I need to see Locke take a lot of steps forward. He has played the Chiefs twice in his career and looked bad both times.
Are you firing up Fant? I mean, he seems to be the only one that I would feel good firing up on that team.
Yeah, and probably Melvin Gordon. I think there's a chance Lindsey misses.
Yeah. On KC's side here, so you've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, questionable with the illness. You've got, obviously, you're playing Hill, Kelsey, and Mahomes. Do you feel confident starting anyone else, though, on the Chiefs?
No, because Denver has a pretty good defense, and they've had some good pass rush. And I think if there's a temptation if CEH sits that you're like, well, maybe play Le'Veon Bell. I'm not so sure. Denver's actually been pretty good against the run. Shelby Harris is back. Came back off the COVID list, so I feel like Hill, Kelsey, Mahomes, I feel confident in. Somebody else may have a nice game, but I don't feel confident rolling the dice in that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. For me, it's just those three, and I don't feel comfortable playing anybody else. I am taking Kansas City. What about yourself?
Yep, taking the Chiefs.
All right, next up, the first Monday Night Football game of the doubleheader, the 4-7 Washington football team at the 11-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. Terry McLaurin questionable with an injury. This is obviously a big test for Washington. They are still in the playoff race. What are you expecting from Alex Smith? And, really, it's really the four guys here, right? I don't know if you're playing Smith, but you need Smith to be good to help out Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, and Logan Thomas.
Yeah, and I am worried McLaurin's another one of those late ads, went onto the injury report today. So I think that bears watching. Hopefully he plays in that game. If he plays, I'm playing him and Gibson. I'm actually not playing McKissick this week because we've seen kind of his volume come down a little bit, and Pittsburgh's a tough matchup. I'm fading Gibson down a little bit. I think there's a tendency. The last time we saw him was just a phenomenal game. Nobody does that to Pittsburgh, and Washington's not going to do that to Pittsburgh either.
Yeah. I think the only reason I don't think Gibson does anything close to that, but I'm with you on fading McKissick. We've actually seen the past couple of weeks where when Alex Smith first started, McKissick was out there a lot, getting a lot of the passing work. They've started to move Antonio Gibson into that role, so I could see him getting some of the passing down work, which could be key with them being down in this game. But I'm with you. He's not putting up a 30-point game. I don't even expect him to put up like a 20-point game. It's probably going to be a 12 to 15 range, depending on if he gets a touchdown. For Pittsburgh side here, obviously we talked about it earlier in the show. They looked flat on Wednesday. It may sound easy to say they get back on track this week against Washington, but Washington has a really good defense, both up front and the number one rated pass defense. So what do you think Pittsburgh can do in this game Monday night?
Yeah, and it looks like Connor's going to miss again. Not going to be able to come off.
So Big Ben throwing it 50 times again. Let's go.
Well, Ben is better at home, and throwing it 50 times wouldn't be that big of a surprise. Again, I've seen Benny Snell play. I would vote to throw it. Washington has a decent secondary. Pittsburgh has 4 really great passing options and 2 or 3 other passing options that can get out there. I mean, as we saw in that game against Baltimore, James Washington ends up giving you the big clutch reception, which I know crushed the hopes and dreams of both you, me, and Dennis, who had some combination of Johnson, Claypool, and Schuster that we were looking for getting that reception. So I think Pittsburgh wins at home. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I could see him getting in the 24 to 30 point range and winning by 7 to 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it earlier. You have to play these guys. Like, you're not, as much as it sucked, obviously, seeing Deontay, and I'm not even really that upset about the Claypool thing. I think Claypool is a little bit more boomer bust than in my opinion, Deontay is. Now, I've been on the Deontay train for a while now, but he's the one who gets targeted the most. You can't expect him to get 20 points every single week. As much as I'd love it, it's not going to happen every single week. And as we mentioned, Juju's been on fire recently. He's been the guy who's been really good. So if I had to pick one or two, I think those would be the ones that I'd lean to is Juju or Deontay having a big game here.
He's playing like he's a guy in a contract here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? He's playing for somebody else's contracts. I don't think, especially with the way Claypool stepped up this year, I'd be surprised if Juju comes back to Pittsburgh with the way they really don't seem to pay their wide receivers. I am picking Pittsburgh to win. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm picking Pittsburgh.
And the news that just came across the wire here, Darnell Mooney is expected to play, so that does help him out, at least if A-Rob is out. Mooney might be a guy that you could fire up. Bills 8-3 at the 5-6 49ers. The Bills running game looked strong last week with Singletary and Moss. Do you think they get it going again?
Yeah, I think they are going to try to get those guys involved. You need to be more than a one-dimensional team to be a competitive team in the playoffs. That being said, I don't think they're going to abandon the passing game. The 49ers defense isn't what it was thanks to injuries, but they aren't too bad either. They stifled the Rams' attempts to run pretty good last week for a lot of the game.
Yeah, I would. I feel like I'd feel more. Singletary has looked better the past couple of weeks, so I feel a little bit more comfortable throwing him out there. Still don't feel great about either one of them. They're flex options for me, though. I can't.
You can't count on either of them to be a sure goal line option.
Yeah,
and that's the problem.
I'm fine with that because I roster Allen in a lot of places. I'm fine with him being the goal line option.
Yeah, I mean it's good for Allen. It's tough.
Yeah, it sucks for them. John Brown on the IR. We saw obviously a good game out of Gabe Davis last week. Do you think that continues this week?
Yeah, I do like Davis. We've seen him step up even when John Brown's been in the lineup. Yeah. He was their best receiver last week. And the 49ers don't have a bad secondary, but they don't have a secondary that scares you. I also think we'll probably see Diggs get going again. Yeah, the Bills probably really want to get a win because they have to go right back to Arizona where they had the Hail Murray against them the last time they were there. Because I think that's going to hamper the 49ers a little bit too. It's tough getting displaced, new practice, you're home in a place that is typically where you go to play your division rival.
Yeah, and I mean, I was going to bring that up because I saw a picture of Kyle Shanahan who almost looked like defeated. Picture they posted him with them moving everything out. He was just kind of sitting around them.
To a season where they can't keep any of their players on the. He honestly should be in the Coach of the Year discussion again, because being 5-6 and still being in the playoff picture, considering there were weeks where we couldn't name the running back who was going to be playing for them. They took next man up to just like the next level. They had people you didn't ever hear of or thought were well out of football, like Kevin White playing receiver for them. They've had huge defensive injuries. They lost their quarterback. They lost Kittle. And the fact that they've kept playing hard, and now basically they're nomads.
Yeah, and it sucks for them too because of that. I've heard some of the interview by Kyle Shanahan where he was talking about, obviously them having to, at this time of the year, they have to leave their families behind because their families have to stay there because of the new protocols with the NFL and COVID, and they have to stay in Arizona. They don't get to come back and forth. They are moving now to Arizona for the rest of the season, so that it's gonna. I agree. I think it's gonna be tough on them. Maybe it's a rallying cry, which would obviously be great for them. Maybe they can rally together and get a couple wins. I don't see it happening though this week.
I think they can rally and get some wins. When they start playing division games, like what we saw with the Rams. I just think Buffalo's a little better team.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, I don't see it happening this week. I'm taking the Bills, and I assume you are as well.
Taking the Bills.
All right, then the Tuesday night football game, the 3-8 Dallas Cowboys at the 6-5 Baltimore Ravens. Everything is looking. Oh, I'll save that for a minute. I'm sorry. Dallas looked like a mess on Thanksgiving. Will the layoff help? Do you think this offense can get going, even with their offensive line, which I think is the biggest thing, is all beat up again?
Yeah, if they don't get some of those offensive line guys back, I don't think they will, because even a somewhat depleted Ravens defense was making plays against a pretty good Pittsburgh offense on the road in Baltimore on Tuesday. Primetime Andy is not the best Andy.
Yeah.
I'm honestly sort of interested if we could get primetime Andy against primetime Trace McSorley. That might make this game more interesting, but if Lamar Jackson comes back, God help the Cowboys.
So that's the thing. I have bad news for you. Everything is pointing to he's going to be available to play. So
that's come off as soon as Sunday. Well, if they would have made these guys actually play a game when they were supposed to play a freaking game.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Yeah, I'm with you. We talked very much about that last week. How I thought that was a bunch of crap for Baltimore, but I'm with you. I think Amari Cooper's still good, as much as it pains me to admit that, because he seems to be the one Andy Dalton goes to.
The question is whether we start seeing more Pollard than Ezekiel Elliott, which is what makes me nervous about playing Elliott. You're still playing him, but I'm dropping him.
Yeah,
well
you have
RB2
to.
category.
I have him right now ranked at, I think, RB18 is what I have him at right now. I don't know. I love Zeke. Obviously, he helped bring my Buckeyes a national championship. I don't know what to do with him. I just don't. I can't. I can't trust him. I mean, it wasn't a great matchup last week, but I think it's fair to say this is an even worse one because Washington's defense is good. It's not as good as Baltimore's, so like front line at least, in stopping the run. So again, same thing as Kamara. You have to play him because he has the pedigree. He's an elite talent, but I just don't know. You can't expect him to get. If he gets you 7 points, I think you're happy at this point.
I like Cooper, and he'll probably be okay, and you're still playing him too. But Andy Dalton has not ever in his entire career been good in primetime games. And
it's a Tuesday night game, though, so you could argue it's not really prime time, But
he's especially not been good against Baltimore in primetime.
That's true.
He probably has some flashback nightmares about those guys.
All right, on Baltimore's side, RG3 goes on the IR with the hamstring. The Ravens have still a lot of players on COVID, but Ingram, Dobbins look like they'll be back, and obviously Lamar Jackson as well. With Lamar coming back, how do you think that changes the offense some? We still don't – I don't think Andrews is coming back at all. I know he tested positive. It sounds like he might be out for a little bit. So you trusting in Hollywood
in that
now?
high-risk category.
Yeah, because of the diabetic. Yeah.
I am not trusting in Hollywood. No, Lamar Jackson being back makes them more dynamic, but that could also just be a lot more running. There was some talk Willie Snead could be back too, which puts a wrinkle in there. The last time we saw Lamar Jackson out there, he had Hollywood Brown as an option and chose to throw to Dez Bryant. So, and let's be honest, Dez Bryant would probably love nothing more than to have a nice game in primetime against the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. He'd be loving throwing up that X if he can get a touchdown or two in this one.
I'm sure Baltimore's going to have a fine game. Their backs against the wall, too. They lose this game, They probably are fading from the playoffs because, if New England manages to win on Sunday and gets to 6-6, New England would freaking jump Baltimore if they lost because Baltimore lost the head-to-head. Yeah. So they're 5 games back with having swept in their own division. It's no lock they can catch Cleveland, and it's no lock that they can overcome Cleveland on Monday night. You got to win the games that you're supposed to win, and this is a game that they are supposed to win. If they want any chance, they got to win this game.
Yeah, and I am going to pick them to win. I do think it will be at least I hope it'll be a close game. We saw Dallas kind of take Pittsburgh to the wire. I think they could do that here again, but I do expect Baltimore to win the game. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens.
All right, so before we get out of here, we are going to talk Mandalorian. Just to give the folks a minute in case they haven't watched last week's episode, do you want to pull up our picks really quick and run through that since we didn't get a chance to do Thursday show? That'll give everybody a chance to kind of, if you haven't seen The Jedi, which was last Friday's episode, we're going to talk about that. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. So if you haven't and you're leaving now, thank you for watching. We'll be back on Monday with obviously all the recaps and probably talking about I'm sure the Pittsburgh game will actually be on while we're talking. And if any news changes for those games, we'll talk about those.
So in Podcast Network, you were really good last week, 13-3. So you actually increased your lead, 117 for you. I'm next up at 109. My wife at 105. Dennis is 102. Ricky's been trying to pick a ton of upsets to make a comeback, and
it's not working.
88. Yeah. He's hit 88 picks. But hey, you know what? When you get to that point in time in our league chat, that's where it's actually getting a kind of interesting because of your spectacular week and because of some difficulties. You moved up into a tie with a couple other people at 117. Justin continues to lead. He also got 13 right last week. He has the lead at 121. So you're 4 picks back with 5 weeks to play. So I think, right in range, at least you got a shot.
Well, I'm not even thinking about that, honestly, and I just go in and I'm just picking the games. If not, hey, I'm happy for Justin. So I'm not going to pull a Ricky. I'd like to at least finish second if possible. So I'm not trying to go in there and because all it takes is one. If he would end up having like a whatever, an 8-8 or whatever week this week, all of a sudden I get up right up there with him. So, all right, now time to talk Mandalorian. Obviously, phenomenal episode, one of that we were all waiting for, and getting to finally see Ahsoka Tano when her name was dropped just an episode ago. We were kind of like, okay, when are we going to get to see her? So, what was your thought about it? Because it's obviously very interesting in some of the things that they threw out storyline wise. We also got to see a lot of action as well with Ahsoka Tano, and of course, obviously, the Mandalorian as well, Mando, with the action that he brought to the episode.
Yeah, and I loved Rosario Dawson. I thought she did a really nice job in the role. I liked the more action-oriented episode. Dave Filoni wrote and directed that one. I thought it really came through. Had some very kind of Akira Kurosawa feel to it. Some of that even the modern American equivalent to Seven Samurai is the Magnificent Seven. You get that kind of gunslinger coming to free the town. In this case, the Jedi. Love the white lightsabers. It was interesting to me. I don't know if this is something that I just missed from something. I didn't realize Beskar was immune to a lightsaber.
Yeah, I did not know that either.
I thought that was kind of cool, because you see Mando, the lightsaber's coming, he puts his arm out, and I was like, oh my God, is he going to go full Luke Skywalker?
Yeah.
Like, oh no, his armor does it. And when that made it kind of interesting when she was fighting the lady who was running the town with that Beskar staff. And that was kind of cool to get handed off. But it was a huge episode for learning a little bit about our friend.
Yeah, which I will say on the Beskar part, I guess in the end it makes sense if you kind of connect the dots, and the fact that the Mandalorians and the Jedis have been like hated enemies, rivals for so long. So I guess it makes sense that the armor would be able to defend off lightsaber attacks because those two have been at odds for so long. But yes, we finally get to learn Baby Yoda's name. I enjoyed the hell out of that meme that I sent you where it has him saying the name, then he goes Baby Yoda, because that's what my son did. We watched it with him because he's a big fan as well, and we were like, no, so his name is Grogu. You have to call him Grogu now. He's like, no, his name's Baby Yoda. And I'm like, all right, you can just call him whatever you want. But obviously, we learn Grogu is his name. What do you think? I was not expecting. I think that was probably like the biggest revelation. We saw possibly Boba Fett. We get to see Ahsoka Tano, and no, getting his name, I think, is going to be the biggest thing we take from this season.
I don't know that it ends up being the biggest thing we take from this season. It was interesting to me to learn. I read a little bit afterward. They've actually known that was going to be his name since the first season. They told the cast that was going to be his name in the first season.
Gotcha.
And the Favreau has said it has significance, which you will learn more about as we go through. So that makes me put it a little bit on pause. Initially, I was like, you had 2 years, and this is, it was kind of fun though, like when he finds his name and Mando says Grogu, and he looks like, hey, kind of people like it. It's like when you get the dog from the pound and you finally figure out what its real name is, and they're so excited to respond. So that was kind of cool. A couple of things about that people have pointed out. So first of all, you saw the meme I sent you. She's like, I've only ever met one of his kind. Yaddle has got to be just pissed, because I thought about it. I was like, oh yeah, Ahsoka Tano would have seen, because that was in that prequel movie, right?
Yep.
So forget about that. But then somebody, my friend, another Matt, all great Matts think alike, watch The Mandalorian. His son pointed out, he's like, why doesn't his name start with a Y? Because the only ones we've ever seen is Yoda and Yaddle. So that's an interesting thing I hadn't thought about. I'm curious when they get to giving you some of the significance and why they have that name. It's not my favorite name, but nothing was ever gonna, top little baby Yoda. I mean, and we knew Yoda wasn't going to be his name, but it does also open the possibility, knowing that he was at the Jedi Temple and stuff, does reopen the possibility that he has some kind of familial connection to Yoda.
Yeah,
because they would have been there together. He would have been part of the younglings. How did he escape? I had other questions that are running through my mind, like, is his kind of childlike, has he regressed a little bit? Because they said he was hiding who he was as a means of protection. Because you think about the younglings, it indicated that he'd gone through some level of Jedi training.
Yeah.
So, and we've also seen, the only thing that makes me sort of nervous is you saw Ahsoka Tano saying, I won't train him because he has too much fear. And I've seen this turn. And we've seen Grogu do some things, like when he tried to choke out Cara Dune. And I was like, please don't make him bad.
Yeah.
I don't think I could take it, you know.
I don't. I was making when Ahsoka Tano started talking about that, about how he's like hiding himself, so it almost made it sound like I was making I don't know if you've ever seen the 40-Year-Old Virgin, but I made the joke with my wife. So I was like, so if you don't use it, you lose it. Like I felt like I'm interested to see what happens with him, because obviously she hints at taking him to the Jedi Temple, which I imagine we're probably going to see this season. You know, what does that do for him? I'm very interested to see where they go with the storyline, because we talked last week thinking maybe it was something where Grogu gets left with Ahsoka Tano, and then maybe at some point he gets taken by God, why do I his name just I want to call him Moffat, and that's not his name.
Grand Moff Gideon.
Yeah, so if maybe he gets taken by Moff Gideon. And now we see that they're going to the Jedi Temple. So I'll be interested to see what happens with Grogu moving forward. That stuff that you just told me, I did not know, because I hadn't read anything about that. So that makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, I can't really comment on your other thing, because unlike you, I might have woken up at 6:15 and thought, why am I awake? Oh shit, my show is on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't. Yeah. So I guess I'm about to find out something that I was just asking about. All right. So what did you think of Ahsoka Tano? Because I'm with you. I love Rosario Dawson, not only because she's extremely attractive, she's a phenomenal actress. I thought that it was like, no joke, I feel like they picked the perfect person to play her. Like she almost looked like the cartoon copy live on there. I thought she did an amazing job. You know, I hope we get to see more of them. I'll just throw this in there as well. Do you hope that maybe we see a spinoff with her and Thrawn as well, possibly, with the way things went?
That's what they said, that they were planning a few spinoffs of The Mandalorian, and a lot of people think that was the backdoor pilot, and that's why they had Filoni do it, because obviously he introduced Ahsoka Tano and Thrawn in Clone Wars and Rebels, and so I think that is a little bit where they're going. The question now for our friend Baby Yoda is, at the end she leaves him and says, you know, you'll call out and another Jedi will find you. Who is that?
Yeah.
Jedi going to be? That got people really spinning, some of the other ones that you've seen potentially in Clone Wars. Or are we going to see a Luke Skywalker? You know, are we going to see something, you know, out of there? And also, the way it's tracking, they're gonna have to beat the Empire again. I find that a little, you know, kind of exciting.
Yeah. I mean, that was an interesting line for me as well, because you've also heard her and a lot of other people, the Mandalorians, everybody have hinted at this year not this year, in this season, that there are more Jedi out there. They're just hiding. And clearly we know that that's possible. So I'll be interested to see if it's someone from Clone Wars. Maybe it's another character they just decide to make. Or they just
have the Jedi Order video game, which is supposed to be canonical. You know, there's characters in there. It could be somebody brought up, you know, do we know Ahsoka Tano's been out there. We didn't see her. What if like Mace Windu didn't die?
Yeah, I think Mace Windu's dead, but that would be interesting with I don't remember what his name is in the game. What?
But you can't be sure.
I mean, I can be pretty sure he's dead. Yeah, I think, is it Cameron? What is his name? Because I have the game.
It's I can't remember what his name is either, but the Cameron is the name of the actor, Cameron Monaghan.
He's a great actor, but they used him, and I've always wondered that if they used him and made the character look exactly like him in the game for something like this. So it would be interesting to see him
trying to tie the larger canon together. So,
and this, I don't remember, because I'm not gonna lie, I never beat the game. I've got like one more planet to go to, but it's in between episodes 3 and 4, because they're hunting the Jedi right now in the game. And if anybody hasn't played it, they have like this squad of, and they actually have another. I don't remember what her name is. It's been forever since I played that game now. Who is a Sith that works for Vader, that is hunting down Jedi throughout the galaxy and killing them. And that's kind of what the game is about. He's trying to call out to other Jedis. In fact, some of the things you do is go to Jedi temples in this game.
We know that too from the sequel trilogy, that in the intervening time between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, Luke Skywalker restarted a Jedi Academy and tried to get the Jedi Order going again. That was part of what led to his fallout with Ben.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting if they bring him. I would love it, because I would love for them to kind of tie all of that in together, as you just mentioned. Will they bring in somebody else? Again, I thought it was a great episode. I can't wait. I've got 2.5 hours now. It's at 7:00 my time. So she's home at 9:30, and that's our goal for the night. So
the only sad thing is it's only like 30 minutes.
I've kind of gotten used to it now. I wish they were an hour long, or at least if they're going to be 30 minutes, give us 16 episodes instead of 8. Like, I'd love that too, but I guess it is what it is. When you've got something good, you can't, beggars can't be choosers, and I can't wait. So what do we have left? Is it 2 more episodes after today's episode?
Yeah, this is 6. This is 14 technically, but
yeah, so can't wait. I mean, and again, hopefully we get, it's been a year pretty much since they released every one, right? Because the last one came out last October. So I would imagine they'll probably do the same thing again. We probably won't see season 3 until next October, would be my guess.
Yeah, probably. And let's hope it stays on track, because luckily they had started filming for this and had gotten a lot of the filming done prior to the pandemic hitting last year, which is one of the reasons this is one of the few kind of big shows like this that stayed on track. So let's hope they're able to stay on track. They've definitely done better than the Marvel shows. We were supposed to have seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier by now. We were supposed to have seen WandaVision by now. We were supposed to have seen Hawkeye and his daughter by now. And it looks like WandaVision finally going to drop in January.
Yeah. Well, I think WandaVision is the easiest, because I think they had already almost finished that. The biggest thing with, I know, Falcon and Winter Soldier was they were filming in South America for the most part.
No, I think it was
was it
Europe? Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember when they were filming it, like I can't remember how much. I know they were saying like they were almost halfway through, and then COVID hit, and like they had to get everybody out of there because they were closing the country down. So, I mean, there's not much you can do about that, but. Well, I'm excited, man. I can't wait to go watch the episode tonight. Then I'd want to watch it without my wife, but if she found out, she'd kill me.
No, you shouldn't.
Yeah, so I'm excited to watch that. Obviously, for those of you who stayed watching, thank you again. You guys always, if you're big Mandalorian fans, feel free to comment. There's a bunch of you still watching, so I mean, feel free to comment if you guys are fans. We will interact with you on that too, not just fantasy football, but. We will be back on Monday to recap all of the games. Obviously, we'll have a game in, I would imagine. I'm pretty sure the Steelers game will be on while we're recording Monday.
Yeah, because I think it starts at like 4 Eastern or 3:30 Eastern.
We'll talk about that as obviously the game is going on. Hopefully, Deontay Johnson has a good game and carries my one biggest team that I want to still make the playoffs into the playoffs. Good luck to everybody in this final week of the fantasy football regular season, and we will talk to you guys again on